One.
Hi everyone, we are here to discuss a little bit of one of the videos of the World Economic Forum, and the video chosen by our team is called Bridges versus Borders, which talks about migration, and we found actually a relevant topic to discuss because of the recent migrations happen in the United States and Europe, and the theories that we have chosen to apply for this is the ideology and discourse analysis, because we think it's the best to understand the speeches of the speakers. So, first I would like to introduce our members, Andre, me, Evandro, Wisdom, and Charles, and we'll be discussing differently in the next slides. So the first thing I would like to say is the World Economic Forum's migration agenda. And so we can see that there is a few points. Migration is actually a very complex topic to discuss, and many other topics are related to it. It's a pattern that was developed by the World Economic Forum, and so we will go a little bit deeper on that. First, I would like to say that humanity has always been on the move. So throughout history, we have migrated in search of new opportunities, as well as to escape persecution, conflict, and poverty. Movements of people happen all around the world. But although migration is a global phenomenon, there is still no global understanding of how to manage it. Today, people are moving more than ever before. There are presently around 258 million international migrants. That figure has grown rapidly since the turn of the millennium, when there were only around 173 million. Together with the increase in volume, we are seeing changes in demographics, advances in technology, evolving needs of labor markets, and continued challenges imposed by wars, shortages, human rights violations, and climate change. We sometimes think of certain countries as sources of migrants and others as recipients. But most of nations today experience migration from all the three perspectives, as countries of origin, transit, and destination. Over the past year, through the consultations of the World Economic Forum, there was a lot to learn about the human mobility. For example, there is more migration between countries in the global south than from the global north. Asia hosts the most migrants, with 80 million residing in the region, which actually sometimes think that will be the United States in Europe. And as remittances represent the largest source of external finance for many developing countries, way ahead of official development assistance, and that's why there is a group that was chosen to discuss this issue on the video, Bridges versus Border. So I would like to present the speakers of the video and talk a little bit of the background. And the first one we can see here is Alejandro Ramirez, which is actually the CEO of Cinépolis, one of the biggest cinema companies in Latin America and the United States. And he's also the chairman of the Mexican Business Council. Alicia Ibarra, which is the executive secretary of the United Nations on migration, and she resides now in Chile. Hikmet Erzak, which is the CEO of Western Union, one of the biggest money transfer company in the world. Queer Young, a social entrepreneur. She's been living in the United States for many years, and she resided in the state of California as an illegal immigrant for many years. Now she helps small business of immigrants in the state of California. And Antonio Platon is a photographer that was very famous because of the picture taken of Putin.
Hi, the first analysis we are going to use is ideology. Ideology are a representation of aspects of the world, example, positions, attitudes, beliefs, and perspectives, which can contribute to establishing, maintaining, and change social relation of power. Domination and exploitation. New management ideology is part of the broader ideological system of the new spirit of capitalists. Champello and Fairclough describes the spirit of capitalism as the ideology that justifies people's commitment to capitalism and which renders this commitment attractive. As for capitalists, they find themselves chained to a never-ending and installable process. Capitalist accumulation requires commitment from many people. Although if you have any real chance of making a substantial profit, many will be sincerely attempted to get involved in this system and might even develop decidedly adverse feelings.
Most of the video speakers are discussing the migration from Mexico to the USA, so we applied this analysis to United States. The USA is a nation developed on the basis of capitalism. Knowing this, Trump is, in his speeches, which are commented by the speakers of WEF, utilizes the American spirit of capitalism to explain the recent US economic challenges by blaming the immigration as the main factor of it. By doing this, he creates a negative perception of the immigration as a new national belief. What was not considered by Trump is that United States is the country originally formed by immigrants, with a very low percentage of natives. What's behind this is that it does not matter whether the immigrants live or stay in the USA. Many of the manufacturing positions in the USA were moved to Asian countries, such as India and China, and they are not coming back on any occasion. Also, by building the discourse as a negative perception of immigrants, Trump legitimizes his political game in order to raise his popularity and win elections. The commitment of Americans are closely related to the economic stimulus and to possible collective advantages that would derive from the immigration leaving the country. Thinking of this, Trump stimulates Americans by enthusiasm of having back the great America, to enhance the commitment of the population. Also, Trump makes American individuals feel secure that both themselves and their children will have a better future with job opportunities, economic growth, and for all and lower crime rates. And by blaming the immigrants, he legitimized his actions. For example, build the wall between Mexico and the USA, send illegal immigrants back home. There is an idea of fairness or injustice with those immigrants who came to the USA and took the good life Americans once had away. All of this is justified as it is for the common good.
Yes, my name is Charles, and we're going to progress on the further specific discussions of the various speakers. Specifically, I'm going to talk about Mr. Hikmet Esek. He's a Turkish immigrant and the CEO of Western Union, and he describes immigration as a positive phenomenon. Hikmet argues that immigrations are not only contributing for the economic growth of various nations. Specifically in the United States, 85% of their earnings are retained in the United States of America, while only about 15% goes back to their various homeland. Also, 9% of the global GDP is derived from immigration. Without it, the global GDP will be 5% less. Immigration is not just the exclusive contribution to the economy, but also the social aspects as the population of countries such as Japan, USA, Great Britain, and Europe, but also the social aspects as the population of countries like them, get older. While the African population is expected to double by 2015, which gives a positive value for immigration. Taking a deeper look at economic ideology, it is clear that ESSEC utilizes it by arguing that immigration has brought only gains, economically speaking, as described by Spedy in 2018. The gains to the winners of the exploitation of the new opportunities are sufficient to compensate the losers for the destructive and its negative consequences to their overall utility. But these compensations are difficult to calculate and effect, so it is easier to pretend that the gains will be widespread. or if not, significant enough to allow for politically controversial redistribution. In other words, the economic gains that ESSEC, as the CEO of one of the biggest providers of online money transfer, has by exploiting new opportunities are sufficient to compensate the negative consequences of immigration, which are, for example, the large expenditure amount of approximately $100 billion US on border security. Another aspect behind this discourse is that the organizations based in the United States of America, immigrants are particularly attractive because they represent a cheaper workforce.
Go.
Okay, we will now talk about Query Young, which is the social entrepreneur that lives in the United States. So basically, Query immigrated to the United States when she was 13 years old, and by the age of 16, she had already employed over 100 individuals. Query indicates that sending immigrants that were educated to the state of California back to their home countries would cause a $12 billion US loss for the government, as they have already made those investments. The first aspect to be considered in her discourse is that Query is an immigrant and a social entrepreneur that created a business that had grown to over $4 million in revenue, saving utility and cost for over 2,000 immigrant small business owners in California. Having this in mind, immigration is seen as a positive phenomenon, as her business totally depends on the small business led by immigrants in the state of California.
Yeah, the next analysis we're going to talk about is Ramirez. Ramirez is a Mexican and the CEO of Cinemapolis, one of the biggest cinemas companies in the world, with operations throughout Latin America and in the USA. As well, he is the chairman at the Mexican Business Council. Ramirez outlines that immigration acts favorably towards diversity, production, and innovation. First, as a CEO of a company with operation in the United States, it is relevant that both countries have a good relationship. Also, being the chairman of Mexican Business Council is of his interest to facilitate business of Mexico in the USA. Secondly, diversity is a highly complex phenomenon that can both enhance and disrupt team performance. It is the truth that diversity contributes positively towards innovation, creativity, and performance. But what he does not say is that under which condition diversity provides a favorable environment for innovation and creativity. Bowers confirmed that there is a distinction between complex and simple tasks in its relationship with diversity. In this research, it was found that more complex tasks were positively associated with performance, while simple tasks were negatively linked. Also, most of the researchers in America organization around diversity confirms that demographic dimension of diversity and diversity, e.g., gender, age, and ethnicity, are associated with negative performance ratio.
Okay, so we have actually decided to take a deeper look at the whole speech, where they talk about the migration to the United States of Latin Americans and Mexicans, and we have applied the reserved army of labor, which is a theory created by Karl Marx. So as we can see here, we have 4 different conditions: labor as commodity, exchange for wages, value of production, and environment conditions, all related to the reserved army of labor. Going a little bit deeper on this, we can see that a different analysis can be done. So Karl Marx argues that labor is a commodity, and secondly, that workers, they sell their labor in exchange for salary. As per his thoughts, the prices of the commodity, so-called labor, is not necessarily connected to the value of production. but it continuously changed due to the diverse circumstances. In reality, Marx develops the idea that the price of the commodities, also including the labor, is ruled by political economy. In other words, the labor price is regulated by the law, and so can be diminished to the minimum. One of the examples used by Marx is that a Negro is a Negro. Only under certain conditions does he become a slave. Bearing this in mind, it's possible to see that immigration is being used as a political and economic tool, as it benefits the growth of the country's economy as well as the private sector. Considering that the value of the labor has more in common with the definition given by the government than to the value of the production, only individuals submitted to certain conditions would work for less than that. This is the case of the immigrants in the United States. In this sense, the government and many US-based companies play an important role by blaming the economic situation of the country on the immigrants, giving them an illegal status and developing the perfect environment to offer them to do the same job as an American citizen would, but for a lower wage.
So, finally, the discord was found on speakers' speeches is that migration is a positive phenomenon. Hidden in their speech is to whom migration is a good and positive. According to Bauman, 1998, free movement now has more to do with the amount of money you have than to the distance between places. The development of transportation through the decades has allowed some to move out of the locality and locality at will. Others watch helplessly the sole locality they inhabit moving away from under their feet. Therefore, migration is not for everyone. The speakers of WEF are all in a high position in large international organizations, and so free movement is right for them, whereas an average population is not an available option. Also, the new challenges in that governments needs to convince immigrants that the decision of moving is a different place is unreasonable. It means deny them to have the same right of free movement they have. In this sense, the US, a country developed on the values of democracy, security, sustainability, and prosperity for the entire world, providing protection and is suffering from migrants, shows that the word a contract perception on what is written and the reality lived by the immigrants in the country. It's fine for Americans to be able to move to another countries, but it's not okay for the Latin Americans to do the same. On the other hand, local governments from where migrants reside prefer to keep locals in their home country in order to prevent the nation from devastation. What if every poor Mexican decides to go to America and it's not legal? What happens to its economy?
Yes, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We have actually come to the end of our discourse and presentation on bridges and borders, and we are sure you enjoyed our presentation and it's going to make a strong impact on all of us. Thank you.